So excited today that on the podcast we have the amazing Melissa Larkins, who is a naturopath, nutritionist, and medical herbalist, and very talented.
I'm so excited to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we love having you. You're a fountain of knowledge. I love it. I feel like I'm better and I learn more every time I talk to you.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about all things bloating and stomach because, all women, I think 99% of women have had bloating at some stage or they're concerned about stomach issues. So firstly, Mel, can you tell us what is the medical definition or what is the definition of bloating?
Well, I mean, like you said, bloating's so common. And I think most, not only women, but people struggle with this at some point in their life. And it can be something that is ongoing to the point where I've had patients who don't even realize that they're bloated till we kind of rectify that. They just think they've got this, big tummy going on. And there's a few different reasons why it can happen, which we'll probably get into. But the main kind of situation is that there is gas in the stomach itself in most cases. Maybe there's gas in the intestines as well. Most people will get that releasing either upwards or downwards. So that gas has to come out to some extent. It doesn't just dissipate on its own. That gas is very likely created by what we call dysbiosis, so an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. And it tends to be the bad bacteria that create that gas.
Okay, so does it come back to what we've talked about previously, which is gut health being a big thing?
Mostly, yes. And I think what we're eating, because what we think is happening is that food comes in and it sits and it stagnates and it's not getting digested or moved through. So it's not just gut microbiome in the case of bloating, but it's an acid issue. Maybe there's not enough acid, maybe there's too much acid, not eating at the right times or eating within your windows of hunger. So the food's not getting broken down, first and foremost. There may also be enzyme issues where the enzymes have changed shape for some reason, or they're non-existent, or there's not enough of them to break down certain proteins and sugars and stuff like that. So then, bloating will happen then. Or there's that dysbiosis. So there's maybe not enough good bacteria, but also maybe there's some specific, what we consider like problematic or pathogenic bacteria that are releasing gases when they feed on all your food that you want to be getting, not them. And that kind of is occurring.
I was going to ask actually, is one of the, obviously there's a physical aesthetic thing that comes with bloating, right? And obviously it's uncomfortable as well, but is there a concern if you're bloating, it means that your body's not going to be taking in all those nutrients? Is there a risk of that happening as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're bloating, you won't be digesting. It's a number one kind of really good sign that you're probably not digesting your food efficiently as well as you could be, and that food is therefore not going to be giving you the nutrients. You won't be absorbing it in the same way.
So for women who are possibly listening to this and thinking they have chronic bloating, so they're constantly bloated, the issue is much, much bigger than just the uncomfortableness, right? It's about you're not getting the nutrients, which could lead to a whole manner of problems, right?
Yeah, nutritional deficiencies for sure. The nutrients that women tend to be low in, like iron, for example, they're already hard to digest. They're hard to get out of our food. Even when we have a beautiful big steak, some women still won't absorb the iron or absorb enough of that iron and then store that iron as well. So there's a couple of things going on. But yeah, you will definitely be prone to nutritional deficiencies if you have that bloating.
Yeah, right. And is it a combination also of our diets not being particularly good and eating kind of processed foods and artificial things? Does that have an effect as well?
Yeah, I think that whole real food communicates with our body in a different way than processed food for sure. Some people find that if they do have preservatives or flavorings or colorings or, even to the point where they're having like highly refined carbohydrates, that will exacerbate bloating.
Yeah, right. So talk to me about the foods we should eat, because I know that you've obviously been working with us for a while now. One of the things we're doing is in October, we're having a anti-bloat meal plan, which is all around, foods to help us not feel
Mhm,
bloated, right?
mhm.
So talk to us about some of the foods that will be on this and that we can just go out and buy today to
Yeah.
help that kind of bloating issue.
This one was really fun to write because I got into a little bit of the history of food, which I'm always a huge fan of. I have this book that is history of meal plans for like famous people and, you know, what King Henry used to eat and all this kind of stuff. So I just love the history
What
of
did he used
food.
to eat?
I can't even remember, but like
Oh,
I know offal. He used to love
oh
offal and
nice.
stuff like that. Yeah. And even, you know, more modern kind of things, what it has Elvis Presley and, you know, that kind of stuff in it as well. But I just love that
peanut
history
butter
of food.
and jelly.
Hamburgers, yeah, cheeseburgers and yeah, chips and yeah.
Yeah.
But when we look at history in terms of how people used to eat, there, you know, if we look to cultures like Italy, for example, or even India, they have digestives. They have aperitifs or digestives or whatever you want to call it built into their meal plans. So even some alcohols that you have after food, they're fennel based or they're, you know, even limoncello, that kind of thing. They help with digestion. Asafoetida, I'm probably butchering that name, but it's a spice that's used in nearly all Indian cooking because it helps with digestion. So we don't really have that. You know, we kind of lost that somewhere along the way, or Australia doesn't have enough history to have kind of developed its own digestive situation to help us with this.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's not new. You know, people have always realized that they need a bit of help, especially after a rich meal. So if you have a big, rich meal, then you need some help. It might be, you know, people used to chew fennel seeds as well, that kind of thing. So what I've done is tried to include some of those traditional digestives in the meal planner, as well as some of our herbal ones that we use, because fennel and chamomile and marshmallow, for example, we still use all those as medicine, as naturopaths, to fix gut complaints and bloating in particular. So we can do that in the form of, well, a few different ways, but cooking with those herbs and spices is a really easy way to kind of introduce them. Teas, herbal teas. I've put lots of fennel tea and chamomile tea and lemon balm tea. Having teas after we eat is a really nice way and a gentle way to soothe our gut and help with digestion and bloating in particular. And you can mix those up if you want. You can put like 3 tea bags in a cup and enjoy that.
And how's peppermint tea? Because I'm having
Great.
peppermint tea right now.
Peppermint tea as well.
Yeah.
I'm forgetful of peppermint tea all the time. But yeah, we use it as a herbal remedy as well. And yes, you can definitely have peppermint tea. The beautiful thing about teas is they give you that whole herb, as opposed to, I know that it's quite trendy to use essential oils. We try not to, and we're trained not to use them internally as naturopaths. So I would be sticking with the tea for that. And then we've included it as much as we can in the food that we have made the meal planners out of too. So there's lots of fennel salads. Pineapple, pineapple naturally is a digestive. It has a beautiful compound in there called bromelain, which assists. So pineapple is in there. Papaya is full of enzymes, you know, and I just spoke about the importance of enzymes for digestion. So having beautiful papaya and pineapple and fennel and all those plant-based digestives is really important in this meal planner. And then I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we go back to macronutrient balance. And by having less refined carbohydrates, so including our whole grains, brown rice instead of white rice, for example, having our whole foods, whole grains, things that haven't been refined will assist with reducing bloating as well, because they will digest slower. If we are to have white rice, it digests really quickly, and then some people will get bloated from that. The same with white bread and starchy vegetables and stuff like that as well. So we're looking at having whole grains in their whole form, and grains, or quinoa is actually a seed. Things, you know, seeds and nuts and seeds and things like that provide us with protein within that carbohydrate profile. Lentils and legumes and chickpeas and all that kind of stuff as well. However, in saying that, some people may need to build their tolerance to legumes and lentils.
Right. Too many all at once have a
Yes.
counteractive effect.
Yes, you'll therefore be a bloating meal planner if you were to have too much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
just
right. So
build up.
start slowly.
Absolutely. If you don't tend to
Yeah.
have those things in your diet normally, we definitely start a bit slower with that, but you can build a tolerance
Yeah.
to those and develop the ability to digest them.
And just a question on, starchy or refined carbohydrates. Obviously, bread. Everyone has bread, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a day. And if you've got growing boys, they seem to eat loads and loads of it. But can you talk to us about the difference of, say, going to buy a sliced white loaf from the supermarket versus a sourdough bread? Like, what's the difference? And what's the nutritional difference, and how does that affect our gut and our health if we have a sourdough versus the processed white loaf?
Yes. I love that question because there's a few different components to answering it, which, I love to be like, oh, this. I'll try and stay on track.
Like,
no, it's good. It's good. So a couple of things. Gluten was never eaten traditionally. Go back to history, right? Yeah. Gluten was never eaten without being fermented first. Our white bread does not have fermented gluten. That gluten is raw. It's unfermented. It's just as it comes off the wheat plant kind of thing. Whereas a sourdough has been fermented. Fermenting things, traditionally it makes it more digestible. It's already kind of gone through the first phase of digestion for you. So therefore you're less likely to be bloated. Fermenting things also means that it gains nutrients and it takes away what's referred to as anti-nutrients. Now that's not necessarily clinically trialed or evidence-based. That's just a philosophy. So for soy and for wheat and for other grains or legumes and stuff like that, they were always traditionally fermented because they were thought to have ill effects on health if they were unfermented. So it will add nutrition and I guess take away any ill effects, if you like, which is maybe what they term those anti-nutrients.
Yeah, right.
And then with a sourdough, because it's fermented, we don't have to add to it. You don't have to preserve a sourdough. Fermented foods are preserved. That's why we used to do that. You'd gather all the cabbages while they're in season, create sauerkraut, and then you had that sauerkraut for the winter when the cabbages don't grow. So fermenting food was pre-refrigeration, and that's why we fermented things. You'll notice that your sourdough will go hard because it doesn't have the preservatives in it that keep it all nice and soft for 2 weeks.
You're right. It does. It absolutely does. Yeah.
Which also should make you think. But it will go hard, but it won't get mold for ages. If you leave it kind of sitting there, it'll probably just turn into a rock. It doesn't, if you've got a good sourdough. So that's the other thing. It doesn't need preservatives. In Australia, the kind of third thing, I guess, is that when we make bread commercially, we are legally required to add certain things, and that includes folic acid.
Yeah.
So it's cereals, breads, for example, need to have these things added, and that is it was originally to protect us, from nutritional deficiencies. But we now know that can be harmful for a lot of people, women in particular, who have a certain gene, what we call like a gene defect. It's referred to as MTHFR. So we know that it's not the most ideal form of folate to be having, and that for some people it can be, it may or can be a problem. So when you have sourdough, you don't have any of that added. If it's a artisan, thank you, kind of like a small batch, there's a bakery around the corner, like some kind of local situation, it will be hand fermented. It will probably be a starter culture that could be up to 150 years old, which is so beautiful. It won't have all those additives. Even better if you can move away from wheat. So look at a spelt sourdough, a rice sourdough, some other grain, and mix it up a bit. You can have wheat sometimes, but we're not meant to kind of survive on that alone.
Yeah, right. I'm lucky I've got a local artisan bakers around the corner. It's like a 10-minute walk away. So I make my kids and me, we all walk up there on the weekend, get a bit of exercise, and also we go and get the sourdough. But it does go hard after a day. It does. But then we just use it for toast. But
and you can cut it up and freeze it, and that might preserve some of its softness. But that softness is not normal. It's artificial. in bread.
Interesting. I didn't know that. So see, I've learned something from the fountain of knowledge, Mel. I love it. And I'm going to actually on the weekend, I'm going to see if they've got like a spelt one, because they bake it all on site, and I'm sure they do.
And ask
just
them
to see
how old their culture is. Like, find out where it came from. They're often really proud of their cultures, and sourdough. It's an art. That's why it's not around anymore as much.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because again, I know we've talked about this before, but just about how much food we eat is processed, and we're not really aware of it because we're also busy, and we're just, we grab things from the shelves without really thinking through. I mean, I know I've done it. I still do it, and you don't think through. Even though I try to be consciously aware of things, sometimes life just happens and you just kind of run in and run out. And, I love the piece you did the other day on the supermarket ready-made meals to kind of, educate people, to really look at the labels and have better choices, because it's hard, right? Because we're all so busy.
Yeah. It's made hard on purpose.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and like I'm in this business and I have all of the learning and the degrees, right? But that doesn't matter in the real world, because every single day there's something new on the market. I had a lady just come in with 2 out of her like 30 supplements. I had no idea what they were, and I had to look them up. And I'm in this world. And so how's somebody, off the street who is probably great at whatever they do meant to know that, that form of magnesium isn't great, or that bread's got preservatives in it,
so
or
hard.
whatever. Yeah.
I do sometimes feel we're doomed to failure because it's just so hard to keep up.
But not with things like this and people like you in the world.
Yes, well, that's what we're hoping, right? Just to educate, and I always think, try and keep things simple, because it's it is overcomplicated. I think so many things, and you're just want to make things simple. And as we always say, and you always preach as well, like go back to whole foods. Like, because that's as simple as they get.
If it's real,
whole, fresh food. Yeah,
you know that the apple is an apple, but if you're looking at the apple in a jar, you're like, what? What's happened to that apple? But also with the sourdough, like outsource it. We as professional women outsource what we're not that great at, right? So, or what takes us more time or whatever. You go to your baker and get the sourdough. I don't make my own sourdough. I don't, I don't have time. I would love to. I've tried in the past and I've written recipe books on it, but I don't have time, and that's okay.
It's time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, find great brands that you can rely on. Like when I went to the supermarket, I'm like, this brand of hummus is fantastic. This particular meal is really actually quite good. But just finding things that you can rely on and finding other people doing their bit. I just got my coffee delivered by my coffee man, it's like, we get grass-fed meat from the meat man. I'm not butchering my whole lambs, we still live in the modern world.
We do. Now, the other question I had around bloating was hormonal bloat, because obviously, this food is a big thing in what we eat, and whether it's, the wrong foods or allergies or whatever. But what about hormonal bloat? Because, women suffer from this a lot, and it's time of the month, and suddenly they'll, post pictures, and this is me this week, this is me next week. And talk to us about hormonal bloat. Why does it happen? Can we do anything about it?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of factors. And, like I always am saying, everyone is so individual. It's hard to be like, this is why that's happening to that person. But I think there's a couple of factors coming into play. There's definitely the shifting of hormones, and that will, it can cause, or it can wreak havoc on everything. Like our neurotransmitters change, our skin changes. It's a lot of different things. It can also change our digestive hormones, and it may also cause us to retain fluid. So the fluid issue may come into play with the hormonal bloat. The other thing is, when we go through stressful times with our sex hormones, your digestive capacity is reduced. So whenever we go through stress, our digestive capacity is reduced, because obviously we are still these primitive cave women at heart. And when there was stress, it was primarily shelter or food. And so your body will switch off your hunger and your thirst to protect you, so that you can go and find a new cave or source some berries or whatever we were doing. So the appetite thing may come into play as well, and not having the lack of appetite, the digestive capacity. And then I think because we have these times when we eat, so we have breakfast, lunch and dinner now, and that's, it's lunchtime, we'll just eat. if we're not hungry and we put food in, then we don't have the ability to break it down, and that will cause bloating.
Yeah, right.
And then the other side of it is when all these hormones are shifting, we get cravings. And so maybe we're eating foods that we don't normally eat, or we wouldn't eat in those kind of amounts as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening to this and saying, I suffer from hormonal bloating, or I know I'm going to be coming up to my period next week and it's all going to go crazy, is there anything they can do to kind of limit that?
Yeah, I think balancing the hormones is key. So we do that herbally, we do that nutritionally. You can do it with lifestyle factors as well. Things like exercise really assist. Making sure that you're hydrated, because your body will retain fluid if you're dehydrated. So that will really help. And the other thing is eating within those windows of hunger. If you're not hungry, then maybe reducing the size of the meal that you are having. Maybe you don't need as much food during that phase, because it is during our menstrual cycle, we have waves, right? Ups and downs. And there's lots of information out there about this, but we do, certain exercises like we have output exercises like cardiovascular that we need to be doing at certain phases. And then when we're coming into our bleed, we really should be looking at more of a convalescence approach, yoga and meditation and things like that. And it's the same with our food. When you are sick with the flu or something, you don't eat as much. I'm not saying you're sick, but you may not need as much nutrition during that phase when you don't have as much output. So maybe reducing the amount that we're eating, or having smaller meals more often. The other thing, of course, is increasing that protein intake. That's going to stabilize your blood sugar levels, prevent cravings and stuff like that. But protein is a little bit slower to digest than our carbohydrates. So increasing our protein, maybe even increasing our fat a little bit too, is really nice. That allows our hormones to be produced efficiently, effectively. So that stabilizes our hormones as well as satiates us.
But good fats.
Great fats, only great fats.
Not a Snickers bar.
No, that's more sugar than fat,
Yeah,
yeah, nuts and seeds and avocado and beautiful yogurts and what else? Olive oil, and you can do grapeseed oil, avocado oil. I've been doing macadamia butter and cashew butter at the moment. I'm really loving nut butters. You can do almond butter, things like that as well.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned protein there. Obviously, we've talked about protein at length before, but it is so important, right? And for women in general to have as much protein as possible.
Yeah.
But with protein and talking protein powders, a lot of protein powders away, right? And that can create bloating, can't it?
It can create bloating, and it may also increase inflammation. It's just a little bit harder on our digestive system than a plant-based protein powder.
Like one I have here earlier. I'm giving myself a plug because we've got protein.
For sure. That's a great protein powder. It's a great option. We're looking for vegetable, plant-based protein overall. We know that is the key to health and longevity anyway. Small amounts of animal protein that are good quality, and lots of plant-based protein is ideal. And, even in our Zing meal planners, you'll see that there's an inclusion of, it might have one beef and one chicken for the whole week, and the rest is plant-based protein, because that is the way forward with our health.
It is fascinating, isn't it? I watched, I don't know if you've watched a show all about the blue zones, about why there are certain blue zones. And I think all of them who are living to that over 100 mark were eating like heavily on the plant-based proteins. And it is,
and loads of
really
fish in those areas as well. Pescatarian with a sprinkling of beef and chicken, I always like to think.
Not a burger every night.
Well, maybe if it's like a sourdough with all the beautiful salad and then a nice piece of salmon. I'm going to write up a salmon sandwich next week. So,
nice.
It's delicious.
Yeah, nice. It is. It's just so interesting, isn't it? Because what I find fascinating is we all have to eat every day, a number of meals, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we all have to eat every single day. And the food we eat is genuinely medicine, right? And it can make an enormous difference to all, for our top to our toe, right? And plus our mental well-being. It's so important, but it's just, and I really hope more than anything, what we're doing at Zing Wellbeing and what we're talking about now just helps people think about what they're eating, because you have to eat. So just choose what you put in your body, because it does make a difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of been trained for convenience and for filling our lives with other things. And, we as women used to spend a really long time in the kitchen. And I love that we've moved away from that. We have more opportunities now. Like I was reading a book last night where she had to quit her job when she got married. It was based in the 60s or 70s. And I just thought, can you imagine? And so times have changed. We don't have the time that we used to have in the kitchen, but we do have benefits with that convenience, like I said, with that hummus or, just the availability of food. We are spoiled for abundance of food, and going into the supermarket, that first part you walk into, it's fruit and veg.
Yeah,
And
it is.
we're always telling people just do the edges, don't go through the middle.
Don't go in the middle.
But yeah, we have a lot working against us in terms of marketing and big money.
Yeah, I know it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I know that I'm from the UK. I'm Welsh, and when I have family and friends come over here, the thing they say the most is, "Oh my God, there's so much fresh food and fresh veggies and stuff like that in Australia." I can't believe the quality of the fresh ingredients, because I can't even remember, because I haven't lived there for so long. But I don't think it's as abundant in the UK as it is here. So we are spoiled. It just, like, I always see it as just make that little bit of extra effort, right? Like on a weekend, I always do like a little bit of meal prep just to get organized, because we are busy and doing lots of stuff. That's when we fall into the traps, right? Because we're busy, we're stressed, and we just grab something convenient because it's convenient, but then our health suffers for it. So just planning that little bit. And it can be cheaper. Like I've talked for years about how healthy eating doesn't need to be expensive, because if you just plan, you can go and get a truckload of fruits and veg and turn that into delicious meals.
So much less wastage when you plan. And I think that's where a lot of our money kind of goes down the drain. So yeah, planning is key. And our frozen vegetables are also great quality. It's not just fresh. Like we have loads of frozen options as well. And that convenience in that, the dip and cheese aisle, like that, the convenience in there of good quality stuff is unreal. More and more people are kind of making making an effort as a company to produce good quality pre-made options for people. So yeah, it's just about like learning what we need to look for,
it's education, right? Education all the time. Well, listen, thank you so much, as always. Been so good chatting to you. I can't wait for the new meal plans, and I've been having a sticky beak and making some of them myself, and I love them. They're really, really good, so I can't wait.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.